In this edition of Southern Newsweek, Wanaka and Queenstown residents let out a collective sigh of relief after last week's rising floodwaters. An American basketball trainer who works with some of the sport's great players is in Dunedin hosting a clinic. And the ongoing saga of Dunedin's Octagon trial closure has a new turn. Kia ora, I'm Daryl Baser. Wanaka and Queenstown residents, along with many business owners, let out a collective sigh of relief after last week's rising floodwaters threatened their towns. Both their respective lakes, Wanaka and Wakatipu, reached their peaks without inflicting too much damage on the townships.
After waiting over the weekend for floodwaters to stop rising, business owners on the lakefront of Queenstown's Lake Wakatipu and across the hill at Lake Wanaka were relieved when the swollen lake levels started to drop.
The lake level has receded. It's receded about 50 mil, so it's 5 centimetres. So what's that? About that much. Which, if my calculations are correct, given that the lake's 280 square metres is about 9 billion litres of water to make up 5 centimetres. But yeah, as you can see, it's gone down a bit. And with a stroke of luck, we might have dodged a bullet.
McLeod says the flooding has helped provide extra data to improve the Otago Regional Council's flood prediction models and future lakefront development.
Because the one thing I can guarantee is this will happen again in some shape or form, but it's how we inform the process so that it's better, so that every response that council has is better than the last time.
He says at this point there's been no decision on what can be done to protect the lakefront town from future floods, but the collection of wooden debris is an issue.
Something that, in talking with the contractors, having a hard edge to collect the debris on. We've taken 50 odd truckloads of debris away from the lakefront, so having a hard edge to collect that on, all of that will inform the process moving forward.
The Queenstown Lakes District Council says floodwaters will not recede overnight, and the public should still respect any closures or temporary speed limits until further notice. And it's been estimated it could take almost 3 weeks for Lake Wanaka to return to average December lake levels, but businesses affected by the floods are expected to reopen well before then. In the meantime, downstream, the Clutha River flow is expected to peak later today or tomorrow and remain elevated for some time. In Wanaka and Queenstown, the South Today.
An American basketball trainer who works with some of the sport's great players is in Dunedin hosting a clinic. Drew Hanlon may not be a household name to some, but for others he's basketball royalty, as he trains players including Bradley Beal and Joel Embiid. Holding court. NBA training royalty schooling up future Otago basketball stars at a training camp this morning.
They all were kind of, willing to work, and they were all eager to learn. And so those camps make it fun because then you can really expose them to the skills and techniques that it takes for them to improve their game and improve their, wherever they want to use basketball to take them. And so I thought it was a great camp today.
Back in the US, Drew Hanlon trains some of the sport's elite players who are at the top of the game. And while some seek improvement, he says some players don't.
I'm all about, getting guys better, taking them from point A to point B, which is why I would actually rather train a 6th grader that wants to get better than an NBA player that doesn't. And so for me, it's all about if you want to get better, if you crave improvement, if you're open to criticism, and if you're a good person, we can rock and roll.
Darcy Knox plays for Dunedin clubs Mid-City Magic and Otago University. He was among the players at today's camp and says Hanlon taught the basics in an inspirational way.
Footwork, attention to detail on, like little things like efficiency with footwork, things that can, make you quicker really easily.
Hanlon is in Dunedin as part of a world tour where he's visiting clubs and sharing his skills at a grassroots level. Following camps in Auckland and today's in Dunedin, he's spotted a New Zealand approach which could hold some players back.
I think the biggest thing that I've seen with New Zealand basketball as a whole is a lot of the players love the game, but they have never been pushed to that 100%. It's almost very similar to like the culture of just being very laid back and, kind of going through the motions a little bit. And so it's fun to see when I challenge them and push their buttons the right way, when they start going full speed. Mistakes happen, they kind of look over their shoulder, and I'm over there clapping saying, it's okay. Today we are trying to make mistakes because through mistakes is how we make progress.
Nursing an injury he picked up in Australia, Drew Hanlon says he's now having a few days rest and relaxing around the south before jetting home and straight back to work with Joel Embiid of the Philadelphia 76ers. In Dunedin, the South Today. A campaign by Dunedin City Councillor Jules Radich to return groins to Dunedin's Ocean Beach took another step forward on Tuesday. Radich was asking the council to write a report on his plan to reinstate the groins as a method of reducing beach erosion.
Walking along Dunedin's St Clair Beach, City Councillor Jules Radich is pushing for the council to consider rebuilding what many mistake as an old jetty, but is actually an old sand trap.
In my research, the groins that were here protected this seawall that I'm standing on and the whole of Ocean Beach for the last 100 years, or 100 years from 1902 when they built the first ones, right up until about the year 2000.
It's estimated rebuilding the timber groin could cost around $100,000.
I'm very keen to see this wooden groin reinstated at very low cost because I feel quite in peril of the forthcoming winter, because we had very heavy winter storms in 2007 and then again in 2013, and by observation of symmetry we're due again in 2020. And if we get a similar winter storm of that magnitude this coming winter, then we could have $1 to $2 million worth of damage done, and in particular to the landfill at Kettle Park.
Other suggestions to fight beach erosion range from the construction of a new seawall or rock groins to the removal of the old landfill and allowing a natural dune system to return.
This single wooden groin is not the whole answer for all of Ocean Beach. It is simply you might call it an experiment, but it's a rebuilding of something that has been proven to work for 100 years. Right before our very eyes, it would build up the sand all around it over many acres, just as the very first groins did in 1902.
Yesterday, the council voted in favour of commissioning a report to assess Radich's dream of rebuilding the wooden groin. In Dunedin, the South Today.
The ongoing saga of Dunedin's Octagon trial closures has taken a new turn. Octagon market stallholders say despite initially been given confirmed market dates until April, the Dunedin City Council has changed its mind and told them January the 23rd will be their last day. About 25 market stallholders and business owners attended a meeting at Craft Bar last night to air their concerns, after being told by the DCC there won't be any Octagon markets after January 23rd, 2 months earlier than previously thought.
If I had known about that in advance, that they were then going to take away 6 weeks of my livelihood, and my shop has a downturn of around 50% in turnover when the Octagon is closed and the cruise ship buses are not there, and there's an event in the Octagon. It's just a deadly mix, and I heard the same from Neil from Void, right up the other end of town.
Owner of the shop Seriously Twisted, Lindsay Irving, is one of those leading the charge against the proposal to pedestrianise the Octagon and says she's ordered $100,000 worth of stock. Irving told the audience she believes some businesses simply won't survive the impact of the Masters Games.
And I'll tell you now that the retailers will lose $3 million between us, and some of us won't be here as a result of it.
Otago Chamber of Commerce Chair Dougal McGowan addressed today's Dunedin City Council public forum on behalf of retailers and says shopkeepers are worried.
You know, it's a really critical time for them. They've bought stock in advance, assuming that they're going to get the number of people or footsteps walking past their door. It's a really important time for them. You know, the summertime, the cruise ship time, you've got new people into town, highest visitor numbers. This is crucial for them throughout the whole year, you know, because we know in winter it gets really quiet for them.
Market stall holders are at the grassroots of small business. Photographer and Octagon Market stall holder Elaine Grant Dolby says the reduced market dates will have a serious impact.
You know, retired, it's a huge lot. I should get most of my money back, but I'll be left with an awful lot of stock that I can't sell.
Enterprise Dunedin Chairman John Christie says consultation with affected parties is ongoing and alternative options are being looked at. Dougal McGowan says he's due to meet with council staff tomorrow morning to work further on a way forward. In Dunedin, the South Today. Still to come on Southern Newsweek, a celebration of Human Rights Day in Dunedin was used this week to promote the needs of the city's newest arrivals, and 4 traditional Pacific Island canoe, or vaka, are being built in the hope they'll take part in a Pacific Arts Festival. A celebration of Human Rights Day in Dunedin this week was used to promote the needs of some of the city's newest arrivals. Approximately 30 people gathered in the Octagon to celebrate human rights and the diverse society we live in.
International Human Rights Day was celebrated in Dunedin's Octagon today. Hosted by the Otago Polytechnic Students Association, the celebration included a potpourri and an open mic for anyone wishing to speak.
Us as Kiwis, you know, one of our strengths is having that like sort of unconditional kindness, you know, just available on hand for anybody who needs it, because everybody needs a bit of kindness every now and again, like especially in these times.
President of the Dunedin Multi-Ethnic Council, Paul Gawley, used the day to push for more support for the city's new arrivals.
Fima Kai from MBI, the ministry told us that over the next 18 months we're about to have another 12,000 people in Dunedin, which means huge infrastructure is required, social infrastructure.
Gawley also spoke to the Dunedin City Council today about the need for a local immigration office.
That means that we need to have people that are able to look after visas. Some of the corruption that we're seeing now, an employer who pays people on Monday night and then comes and picks up the wages on Tuesday, all sorts of issues around visas. And council needs to support that.
He also wants to see an end of demonising people on benefits and a greater adoption of the living wage across Dunedin.
Many of the councillors promised that they were standing on the basis of a living wage, and so we need to see that happening for staff, and we're striking that at $25 an hour.
3 months ago, the Dunedin Council joined over 150 other employees around the country to adopt a living wage of $21.15 per hour. In Dunedin, the South Today.
4 traditional Pacific Island canoes, or vaka, are being built in the hope they'll be part of next year's Pacific Arts Festival. Initially, the plan was to build just one, however a generous donation expanded the project's ambition. This vaka, or single-hull outrigger canoe, has been made by a master canoe maker in a collaboration with Otago Polytechnic. Master vaka builder Mata Taurari says he was among the group who chose the timber.
But I was asked to come and look for the log. I took Papa Lester with me, and then I went over there. I looked at 3 of the logs there just standing. I just pointed to Ben. I want those 3. And then they cut it down, and they bring it here.
He says when the logs were on site, he then began the process of planning and measuring in the traditional way.
I used my fingers, I used my feet to strike them. 3 of that is just about 11 feet in length. And from there, then I know then that's what we want. And then we all start carving them.
The vaka making project is a collaboration between Otago Polytechnic and the Pacific Trust of Otago. Pacific Trust Chief Executive Lester Dean says it takes many hands to create vaka in a traditional way and is a golden opportunity for learning.
There's a bit of scepticism, because people say, you're going to build a canoe, really? Yeah. So we said 3 months, we've done it in 3 weeks.
Dean says originally only one vaka was going to be built as a project to revive the art of Polynesian canoe building in the city. But with more wood on hand, they're able to make more.
The idea is to involve as many people into in building the canoe, and particularly our young people, get our young people involved. So out of the one, initially it was one, but we've had 4 logs from the arborists, Polytech, so we think we'll build 4.
Lester Deans hopes to have a flotilla of 4 waka ready for a Pacific Arts Festival in April 2020. In Dunedin, the South Today. Dunedin could not be further away from home for a pair of Norwegian rowers. But with lakes and rivers frozen during the European winter, Dunedin is proving a good training ground as they chase their Olympic dreams.
Norwegian rowing duo Siri Christiansen and Hanna Intjord have been training on Otago Harbour this summer to get around the problem of not being able to train in Norway, where currently much of the open water is frozen during the Northern Hemisphere winter.
Yeah, it's been alright. Yeah, it's been good. We've had a little bit of wind, but you can't really do anything about that, and it's a lot better than frozen water, which we have at home, so it's been good, yeah.
They've come to Dunedin at the invitation of rowing coach Mike Hill, who is from Dunedin but spends much of his time in Norway.
He's a rowing coach and he got a job there, and then he found a wife, and now he's like stuck there with her.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
They say they're the only female pair of Olympic rowing contenders in Norway, and they're appreciating the chance of continuing their training away from the Norwegian cold and ice. They've been training here for about 20 hours a week.
It's nice because we both finished our schoolwork before we went here, so we literally only have to train and sleep and eat here. Yeah, so it's been really nice. It's like a really long camp without any other interruptions.
Since being here, they've also raced at 2 regattas and are planning to take part in this coming weekend's Otago Championships before heading back to Norway for Christmas. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Still to come on Southern Newsweek, a Dunedin musician, event coordinator and teacher was surprised to receive a citation from the Dunedin Public Library, and the Kmart Wishing Tree is in its 14th year. The woman behind the donations says it's down on previous years. A Dunedin musician, event coordinator and teacher was surprised to receive a citation from the Dunedin Public Library this week. The award was part of the annual morning tea for volunteers and library staff and recognised an individual who's gone the extra mile. The happy face of a well-kept secret which completely took Dunedin event coordinator Brendan Christie by surprise. As he approached the stage, Dunedin City Councillor Marie Laufiso shares some of the reasons why he's this year's citation recipient.
The tireless dedication to creating annual Music Month celebrations in the libraries and for innovative and imaginative events that bring people joy in library nooks and crannies.
He was gifted an artwork by Dunedin artist Lynn Taylor, which is a series of prints based on his life as a musician, which, along with the surprise, left him unusually lost for words.
I had no idea this was coming. I just thought I was playing a gig out in the lobby.
Around 70 people attended the Dunedin Public Library's Christmas get-together, complete with Christmas carols and a vast array of food. A while later, Christie regained his composure, saying he was blown away with the piece of art he received as part of the citation.
I had no idea. They'd managed to keep it pretty covert by inviting me to play some music, and then, I've been invited to the morning tea before, and it's always a great event. But I had absolutely no idea that this was going to happen.
The council says the citation recognises the valuable contribution of writers, artists, researchers, sponsors and others to the libraries. Brendan Christie is keen to thank all the many volunteers that makes the events run.
A lot of good people. Kay Mercer, who's the event coordinator at the library. There's Stephen Hillman, who works at the Otago Polytechnic and helps video pretty much every performance. We have a tremendous support from a bunch of volunteer photographers, Adam Binns and Paul Allen among them.
He says plans for Nook and Cranny 2020 are already underway, and he's looking at bringing industry professionals to the city to share their expertise. Dunedin Public Libraries say the citation is awarded to a local resident who's made a long and outstanding contribution to the library's collections, services or programs. In Dunedin, the South Today. A plaque to honour ocean-going rower Fyodor Konyakov was unveiled in Dunedin this week. The plaque marks a year since the 67-year-old explorer set out to row more than 10,000 kilometres from the Port Chalmers Yacht Club to Cape Horn in South America.
A plaque at Dunedin's Port Chalmers Yacht Club, marking the point where a year ago Russian adventurer Fyodor Konyakov started rowing by himself all the way to South America.
Fyodor's achievement, which to me is one of the great endurance tests of mankind, rowing from here 6,400 nautical miles across to Chile.
Designed by a British company, Konyakov's narrow rowing boat measured just 9 metres long, with cramped sleeping conditions for its crew of one.
Through that he had no support boat. He had all his provisions on board himself, plus water, etc. His boat was rolled over many times in massive seas, 25-foot waves, etc., so you can imagine what he went through.
The epic journey is just the first leg of an attempt to circumnavigate the globe by rowing boat, with 2 legs still to go. But while waiting for the summer to come back to the Southern Ocean, the adventurer has already been working on breaking another world record.
Presently, he is in the process of going up in a hot air balloon, which will go to the highest height ever by hot air balloon. That's what he's looking at doing.
Konyakov is set to start the second leg of his round-the-world journey this month, rowing from the bottom of South America right past Southern Africa and hopefully arriving at Western Australia. Then he'll wait until next summer to tackle the third leg, with him rowing from Australia back to this plaque in Dunedin, marking where he started his adventure. In Dunedin, the South Today.
At this time of the year, many people hold appeals to help those less fortunate. The Kmart Wishing Tree Appeal is in its 14th year, and the woman behind it says donations have been down on previous years. 'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the house, no one was stirring, not even a mouse. The poem attributed to Clement Clark Moore in the 19th century could be ringing true if donations to Kmart's annual Wishing Tree Appeal are anything to go by.
We're down quite a bit on last year. For about the same period last year, at week 4, we had 1,100 gifts. I've done a count this morning and we're at 660, so quite a bit down.
Dawn Barnes has been the angel behind the Wishing Tree Appeal for many years and puts the roughly 40% drop in donated gifts down to a variety of factors.
I think because there are more appeals going, like different sorts of ones. I know the Hits have got their Anything and Everything collection going on, and that will impact things like this. But hey, 660 gifts is still a fantastic effort, and we're grateful for each and every gift because it means that we're helping more families and giving them a nice Christmas.
The Salvation Army is due to distribute the gifts, and Barnes says some things have changed over the years, including the beginning of a Wishing Tree Appeal at their Invercargill store, but she says there are also a few things that have stayed the same.
In some ways it's changed a lot, but then in other ways it hasn't. We've still got amazing customers that year after year still come in and donate gifts, and we've got new ones coming in as well. We had the other day, I think it was the Grants Bros brownies, came in and the children went shopping and put some gifts under the tree.
She says people can either bring in homemade gifts, items bought elsewhere, or items bought from their store. They're receiving donations at Wishing Trees until Christmas Eve, and some are set to be distributed by the Salvation Army, while others will go into storage for later need. In Dunedin, the South Today. That wraps up this edition of Southern Newsweek. For the latest news from the Southern region, head online to odt.co.nz and follow Channel 39 on Facebook and YouTube. Have a great evening. Ta kite anō.
supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.